Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Kansian with Foundation Software Business Development Manager. Welcome back to another educational webinar series. We're here with Todd DeWalt this afternoon from Construction Leading Edge. We're going to take just a minute. We've got a lot of people registered for this session, which is absolutely great. So we're going to give everybody just a few more minutes to get logged in. So give us another 2 or 3 minutes and we will get this started. We'll be right back. All right, good afternoon, everybody, or maybe good morning, depending on which side of the country you're on. My name is Brian Kansian. I'm the Business Development Manager here with Foundation Software. This afternoon, we're here with Todd DeWalt of Construction Leading Edge. Today's session is going to be about systematizing your business before scaling. I can't tell you from my consulting days here with Foundation how many companies I would walk into who just had so many pain points due to just rapid growth and not being able to have systems in place to accommodate all the additional volume. There's a window of growth that can come without accompanied additional bodies to do these jobs. But at some point, if you don't have systems in place, you do need to hire new bodies. So while growth is good, when it's too fast and it's not well planned for, it obviously can be bad and actually hurt more than it helps. So we're happy to have Todd with us today. Just want to go through a couple housekeeping items. There will be a recording and it will be emailed out once the webinar is completed. It takes a while to process and get out there, but you will receive an email with a link to the recording. Number 2, we will take questions after the presentation. If you look at your toolbar across the top, there is an icon, a little rectangle or a square with a question mark in it. That is your questions pane. Please feel free at your leisure to type in questions as they come up. They'll be logged and we will get through those as we have time toward the end of the presentation. What else do we have here? You all are muted, so we don't have any audio for you guys as attendees. And I think that's it as far as housekeeping goes. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Todd, and we'll see you at Q&A.
Sounds great. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity. Good to see you again. Last time we saw each other was in Vegas.
Yes.
So hopefully that was good. So I'll shut off my camera and we will get into it today. All right, here we go. Lots of ground to cover. So you're a busy construction business owner and you want to grow your business without working 20 more hours a week, without losing money, without losing sleep. In other words, if you're here, you probably are thinking about or you want to scale up, but you want to do it sustainably and profitably. So today is really about uncovering how to scale a construction business without these three things that a lot of people struggle with. You want to scale your business without more stress, without reducing margins, and without working longer hours. And in fact, I'll show you a few keys to scaling your business while actually reducing stress. It is possible. You can scale your business while increasing margins and while working fewer hours. So here's the measuring stick for success. If I do my job today, then here's what you're going to walk away from this training with. We'll talk about 3 scaling pitfalls that far too many builders and construction business owners, whether general contractors, specialty trades, whatever, 3 scaling pitfalls that too many construction businesses fall into, how those quietly erode margin, capacity, and control. We'll also talk about 2 hidden metrics about your business that indicate if your business is ready for growth or not. I'll talk about the Moneyball approach and how one of the biggest lessons from the movie Moneyball is actually a business lesson that you can apply to your business. And then we'll talk about some next steps if you want to assess your business for figure out how ready it is to scale. So if that's what you're looking for, you are in the right place. Let me check in with you. I'm curious if any of these statements sound familiar. Details are falling through the cracks on your projects and with your team. If you look at your calendar, you're spending too much time on low value tasks, low rent tasks, putting out fires, maybe. Perhaps too many problems land in your lap. Maybe it feels like all the problems land in your lap. You don't have time to focus on the big picture. You're so busy working in the business, you don't have time to work on the business. Your stress level is not good. Some of you have a pretty high baseline for stress, but if you're being honest, your stress level is not on a good trajectory. Maybe profitability isn't where it should be. And if you're like a lot of people who want to scale their businesses, you feel like a visionary who is stuck in the day-to-day. As one of our clients described it, felt like his feet were stuck in quicksand. So if that's you, if any of these, or maybe all of these sound familiar, then you're in the right place and you're not alone. Did you know there's a very depressing company that has been studying why successful contractors fail for over the past decade or more? They've studied hundreds of successful contractors that were growing and were successful, but ended up in financial crisis. And they came up with a list of the root causes in a study they call Why Contractors Fail. And we're going to talk about that study in a few minutes and talk about one specific root cause. But let me just give you a little background. Who am I? My name is Todd DeWalt. I started the Construction Leading Edge podcast back in 2024. And then in 2018, I started coaching construction business owners on how to systematize their business. So personally, I've spent the last 30 years in construction, running construction projects, construction teams, managing very large projects, somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million worth of work put into place. And if you are a construction business owner planning to scale, whether you're a general contractor, specialty trade contractor, custom home builder, concrete, roofing, electrical, any sort of construction business owner, this is for you if you want to scale your business. So some of the projects I've worked on have been pretty large. This was a 250 unit senior living community that I spent 2.5 years leading the design, development, and construction of. I did the same thing for this spaceship looking building for Valvoline in Lexington, Kentucky, back in 2015, 16, and 17. Spent a few years building industrial buildings. While those may look like sections of sidewalk, those are actually 600,000 square foot industrial buildings. And if you're a bourbon drinker, I actually did some of my best work in the cities on this map, on the Bourbon Trail, like Louisville, Frankfort, and Lexington, Kentucky. Unfortunately, you'll never see the work I did because it was a sewer lining business, a municipal sewer lining business. And I spent a few years turning that business around, grew it from about 15 employees up to 50 employees, tripled profit margins. And you may be thinking, wow, Todd, sewer lining, is that as glamorous as it sounds? And it is exactly as glamorous as it sounds. As I mentioned, I started the Construction Leading Edge podcast in 2014, and to date, there are 432 episodes. So if you want to listen to interviews with construction business owners who've done it and scaled their business, that's what we talk about on there a lot. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about those scaling pitfalls. If you are about to step in a pitfall, would you like to know that? I would. Personally, I like to get the lesson without the scar. So if you want to get the lesson without the scar and avoid the pain of scaling a business like I've made, the mistakes that I've made, here's the first one. This is the first pitfall when it comes to scaling a business. And it sounds like this. We just need to hire more people. We just need more guys. And for a lot of business owners, this is the default plan. I'm slammed, so I'll hire an estimator. My projects are stacking up, I'll hire a PM, or I'll hire a superintendent, or somebody in the office, and that'll fix it. And sometimes that works, but in many cases, it just multiplies the chaos, and I'll explain why. The truth is, people in your company succeed only when the systems are in place to support them. And think of it like a three-legged stool, all right? You have to have all three legs of a three-legged stool, otherwise it falls over. So the first leg of that stool is an accountability chart, okay? First leg of the stool is an accountability chart, and here's what that does for you. An accountability chart provides clarity on who is responsible or accountable for what results. We're not talking about delegating tasks, we're delegating results. It eliminates confusion about who does things, who does what. It also eliminates duplicate work where you have people stepping on each other's toes. And if you want a culture of accountability, which most people tell me they want, you absolutely have to have an accountability chart. It is the basis of that. This accountability chart also identifies weaknesses in your organization by making it really clear who should own an issue. It eliminates hiding places in an organization. And for your team, it also clarifies how your people contribute to the vision of the company. So that's what it does. Here's what it looks like. This is an accountability chart for one of our clients. They were at about $30 million in annual revenue at the time. And the yellow boxes are the major functions of the business. And then below that are the individual roles that are part of that major function. So if you were to dig into this, you would see that it describes the outcomes that each role is accountable for. Makes it really clear, what are the outcomes this role is accountable for? It creates a single point of accountability for key parts of the business. If you want to grow your business, you need to have a single point of accountability for key parts of the business. One of our clients uses his accountability chart like a filter. He actually printed it out, stuck it on his wall. When an email came in or a call came through, he would look at his accountability chart and see who is accountable for this situation. So if there's a question or a problem, your accountability chart makes it clear who's accountable for that result. So you can go straight to that person, right? A long time ago, I heard a saying that stuck with me. It's really hokey, but the This guy told me the best way to starve a horse is to have two people feed it. So if you have two people who are accountable for something in your business, then nobody is accountable. So you have to eliminate starving horse syndrome. And the way to do that is have a well-designed accountability chart. So that's the first leg of the stool. Some of you may recognize this guy. A few weeks ago, he won the Super Bowl. It's Mike McDonald, head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And if you look in his right hand, what is he holding? He's holding the playbook, right? This is the playbook. And that is the second leg of our stool. Every pro team needs a playbook that explains this is how we do it. You may be thinking, wasn't that a hip hop song from the 90s by Montel Jordan? And you're exactly right, it was. And you're probably singing that song in your head right now. But a this is how we playbook describes how things get done in your organization. So you can train new hires on this is how we do it. So you can answer questions one last time. Maybe you get tired of answering the same question over and over. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to say, that's a great question, go check the playbook. The answer's in there. Or RTFB, as some people would say. Another good reason to have a playbook is so that steps don't get skipped in the process. They don't get forgotten about. And wouldn't it be great to have a process you can hold your people accountable to? So that when there's a problem, you can discern whether it's an issue that the process was wrong or somebody just didn't follow the process. So think about it. Does your team have a playbook? Is there a document they could go to that explains this is how we do it? Or is it more like the tribal knowledge approach? Tribal knowledge is when the business runs, it only runs because certain people just know how things get done. In other words, estimating lives in somebody's head. If you want to learn how to manage a project, you have to ride shotgun with Jason for a few weeks just to see how he does it. You have to shadow people. Things happen differently based on who you ask. People do things differently. There's no clear written process, just stories, traditions passed down from generation to generation around the campfire, habits, memories. And then if you're a tribal knowledge organization, every time you hire somebody new, they have to sit around the campfire and they have to ride around in the truck with Jason and be told how things work again and again and again. And the moment one key person leaves, the person that has all of the tribal knowledge, the system breaks down because the system was never written down. It was in Jason's head. So do you see why it's hard to scale based on tribal knowledge? So my question for you is, do you want your business to run on tribal knowledge or do you want it to run on a playbook? So first leg of the stool, if you want to scale your business, is the accountability chart. That's the foundation. The second leg is the playbook that explains this is how we do it. Now let's talk about the third leg of the stool. Let's talk about Moneyball. This is, yes, the baseball movie where Brad Pitt played Billy Beane, general manager of the Oakland A's. And here's the thing that I realized, the real lesson from Moneyball had nothing to do with baseball. It actually explains why most businesses struggle to scale. In Moneyball, the Oakland A's didn't win with motivation, speeches, or vague goals. Here's what they did. They won by identifying the few measurable inputs that predicted wins. Let me say that again. The Moneyball approach is about identifying the few measurable inputs that predicted wins and then managing those inputs relentlessly. So they stopped trying to manage results and they started managing inputs. And I see this same mistake showing up on construction sites and teams and companies every day. On my very first job site, we were building a college library, and I was doing a layout in the field as an engineer, and I had a co-op named Jason with me. And after a few months, Jason said, Todd, what does it mean to tighten up? Like, what are you talking about? And he said, everybody keeps telling me, Jason, man, you got to tighten up. You got to tighten up. And it was just a saying around this company. This was like one of their mantras. You got to tighten up, man. And Jason had no idea what that meant. He was taking it seriously. But that's kind of what we do with our PMs and superintendents and our teams. We say, you guys got to speed up. You got to communicate better. We got to get this job on schedule. Be more productive. We need to be more profitable. And people don't know what to do with that. Those are not instructions. Those are outcomes. And here's what the Moneyball approach looks like. You decide on the outcomes, like projects complete on schedule, well-informed office, well-informed clients, hitting our profit targets. And then you work backwards from there and identify the inputs, the day-to-day tactics that will lead to those outcomes. Okay, let me say that again. You just start with the outcomes that you want: schedule, scope, budget, quality, safety, communication. Then you work backwards and identify the inputs, the things that can be done every day, every week, every month that will lead to those outcomes. Billy Beane discovered something that most people missed. You don't manage wins, you manage what produces wins. You don't manage wins, that's all post-mortem. After the project is done, after you get the P&L report, it's too late to do anything about that. You manage what produces the wins. And this is where most construction businesses get it wrong. We're telling our teams, you got to speed up, keep the project on schedule, be more productive, communicate better, be more profitable, stop letting things fall through the cracks, don't do this. Those are not instructions, those are outcomes. And that's kind of like telling a baseball player or any athlete, go win more games. It's not really effective coaching. It's not effective leadership. Moneyball changed baseball because they stopped managing results and talking about vague things, and they started to manage the few behaviors that they could employ every at-bat that would lead to the results they want. So here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're frustrated with your team right now, if you feel like you're constantly correcting, reminding, firefighting, cajoling, if you feel like the people aren't taking ownership, it's probably not because your people aren't capable. It's not because they're dumb or they don't care. Maybe you haven't defined the measurable inputs that predict wins. Maybe you haven't defined what the measurable inputs are that predict wins. See, Billy Beane, the Oakland A's, used data to figure out that getting on base was a measurable input that predicted wins. And he focused religiously on that. And you need to do the same thing for your team. Figure out what are the measurable inputs. And then you got to stop managing outcomes and start managing the leading indicators of success. You need to stop managing outcomes and start managing the leading indicators of success. These are the measurable inputs that predict winning. And this is exactly what most construction companies are missing. Which leads me to the third leg of the stool. It's a concept that we've developed with our clients in recent years that I call the Big Five. Each role should have a list of the Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success, the inputs that will lead to winning, okay? That's what the Big Five is. We'll talk some more about that. But let's think about a typical job description. Some of you are probably thinking, I'm working with a recruiter, my HR team has put together a robust job description. It's all super detailed. Let's just take a look at a typical job description. So I pulled a job description for a construction project manager for a company in Vegas before I gave this talk last fall. So let's just take a look at this job description and pick it apart a bit, all right? So right off the top, this first line, other duties will likely be assigned. Nice. Assist with project document control, including but not limited to, verify correct drawings are distributed to the field, support the accounting department in monthly billings, and the bean counters on the call are like, yes, this is the most important thing they can do. Escalate critical or sensitive issues, perform, oh, I like this one, here it is. Just look at how this job description is put together. Up at the top, other duties will likely be assigned, and then, oh, by the way, you're going to be expected to perform additional assignments as required or as directed by executives. So think about some of the questions a new hire would have when they look at this job description. And this is not the entire job description. There were a bunch more bullet points. But here are some of the questions that a new hire who has accepted the offer letter, they're sitting in the trailer or on the job site or in their office, and they're asking themselves questions, maybe asking their boss questions like, hey, how will performance be measured? What does winning look like in this role? What does winning look like? Is it supporting the accounting department? Like, what does winning look like? How do I put points on the board? How do I get promoted? We're probably going to do an evaluation at some point. What's the scorecard? How do I put points on the board? And then, dude, there's a lot of bullet points on the job description. What really matters the most? They can't all be equally important. And then, by the way, what's up with the additional duties at the top and the bottom? So unfortunately, the typical job description is good for getting people hired, getting them to day one of employment, but it's not good for answering these questions. The typical job description is pretty good for getting them to day one, but not to a successful day 90 or 180. It's just not good for it. That's why we developed the Big Five. So the Big Five are the big five activities for a role that are the leading indicators of success. Leading indicators of success. It makes it simple to measure how well they're doing. Makes it really simple. When you have a Big Five, it makes it simple to measure how well is this person doing in their role. A well-designed Big Five also will provide early indicators of problems. Instead of waiting too long, this will give you some early warning signs that things aren't going so well with this person. And the whole point of a well-designed Big Five is to increase the likelihood of the desired outcome. So if you want your people to be your projects to be more profitable, customers to be happier, projects to get done faster, a well-designed Big Five will achieve those outcomes. It will increase the likelihood of achieving those outcomes. This is a longtime client of mine, Alex Gregg. He runs about a $12 million a year business in Nashville, Tennessee. Great implementer. We work together to dial in his Big Five for his team. And we identified the Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success for each role. Then he had cards laminated that list the things that each role needs to do every day, every week, and every month. So his estimating and handoff coordinator, you can see every day, update the task manager, weekly, bill and budget review, weekly, update the cost catalog. What's not shown on here are his job site superintendents, daily job logs, weekly customer updates, 2-week look-aheads submitted every Thursday afternoon. These are the Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success. And this is not a one-size-fits-all. This is something that's based on the outcomes that you want to have for your business. Here's a really interesting situation. Cole West, who went through our program a couple of years ago, he runs operations for a commercial concrete company called Matchless Concrete in South Carolina. And when I interviewed Cole on the podcast after we worked together, he told me about a story about a young man named Max who had worked with them previously, got frustrated by the stress and the aggravation and the chaos, and he left. And he came back and was talking with Cole about an assistant superintendent position. And Max said, look, I am not interested in being a superintendent because I've seen how chaotic it was. No thank you, don't want it. Too much pressure, too much stress, no thanks. Cole showed Max the Big Five for the role that simplified what the role would look like, and went over it with Max. Max said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That clarifies it. So Max started as an assistant superintendent, and then a few months later, he had moved up into the superintendent role, which is a role he didn't think he wanted, but now he's thriving in. And Cole attributes a lot of that success to having a well-defined big five. So the third leg of the stool is the big five. Come up with the leading indicators of success. So think about that. Imagine your team is clear on the things they need to do every day, every week, every month that will lead them to success. All right, now let me ask a few questions. Think about this. We have this three-legged stool, right? The accountability chart, the playbook, the big five. What if one of the legs is missing? What if there's no accountability chart? What if the roles are not clearly defined? It's not clear who does what. What kind of problems show up when it's vague? It's people are kind of feeling around in a dark room trying to figure out what their roles are, or it changes based on the weather. What kind of problems show up? Well, when it's not clear who is accountable for what, details slip through the cracks. Balls get dropped. You have people stepping on each other's toes, duplicating effort. There's finger pointing. I thought you did this. No, you did this last time. No, finger pointing. And then if there are questions, who are they going to ask? They have to ask the boss, right? Similar question. What if there's no playbook? What if there's no documented process that says this is how we do it? There's nothing to train people on. There's no process that's written down. It's all tribal knowledge. What kind of problems show up then? You might say, well, people do things how they want. Or we have steps that get skipped. People forget about it because it's based on memory. There's inconsistency in results. You have people doing things their own way, the different strokes for different folks, and people are doing things however they want to. So you're getting different results from different people doing this, what should be the same job. It's like a band where people are playing from different sheets of music. And if there are questions about how something gets done, who do they have to ask? They probably have to call you. What if there's no big five? There's just a 50-point job description, and it's not clear what winning looks like or what they should be focused on. What kind of problems show up then? Well, what I've seen is people tend to spend time on things that don't matter. They do the easy stuff, or they do the things they're really good at, and they avoid the things that they don't want to. They hide from the things that really matter. By the time problems show up, maybe it's too late to do anything about it. And then if there's a question, who do they call? They probably have to call you. Think about this question. What happens if you hire someone and then you try to figure all of this stuff out? What if you bring somebody on board and you don't have any of these legs of the stool in place? It's not clear what the role is. There's no documented process. It's all rear view mirror. There's no big five. What happens when you hire somebody and then you try to figure all of this stuff out? Some of you might be saying, that's exactly what I'm dealing with right now. So avoid this scaling trap. Be sure you have the right structure in place before you hire. This is the tempting trap. We just need to hire more people, but it is a trap that too many people fall into. So be sure you have the right structure in place before you hire people. I talked about some hidden metrics. One of the hidden metrics about your business is what I call the OIC, the owner interruption count. It is the total number of texts, emails, phone calls, and questions that you have to respond to in a given day. So if you were to pull out your phone and look at the texts, phone calls, emails, and think about the in-person interruptions you received in a day, that's your owner interruption count. That's your OIC. And if your OIC is too high, you don't have time to create these things. You don't have time to design your accountability chart, or you don't have time to work on the business. And if your OIC is too high, that tells you that your company is designed to run on you. You are the system that your business runs on. And that's not a time management problem. You can't create more time. It's not a time management problem. That's a design problem. That's an indication that your business has outgrown your system, and you can't outwork a system that's been outgrown. So I'm curious. Take a second and think about, what's your OIC? What's your average number of owner interruptions that you get, the number of texts, phone calls, and emails that you get in a day? You may want to jot that down. Is it 50, 75, 100? And then say you have 100 interruptions a day. Divide that by 10 hours. That's 10 interruptions an hour. That means you're getting interrupted on average about every 5 or 6 minutes. No wonder you can't get anything done, right? And then one more thing, the OIC also stands for, oh, I see what the problem is. A lot of people say that when they look at their OIC, they say, oh, I see why I can't get anything done. All right, let's talk about the second trap. This is probably the biggest trap that I see people stepping into. When they start to scale, they think, we need more leads, we need more sales, we just need to get more work, then we'll figure it out. We just need more work. We need more sales, we need more revenue, we just need more work. I was talking to a business owner and her operations manager, Robert, a little over a year and a half ago, and here's what they were dealing with. They were a commercial general contractor, and they had some key people quit. They said it seemed like their superintendents didn't have the right training. Their field leaders were making bad decisions. Robert and the owner said they had to constantly remind their team, their project managers and superintendents, they were constantly telling them what to do, constantly following up, constantly reminding them. Customers were unhappy. They actually shared with me that a customer said, hey, Robert, it looks like you guys don't know what you're doing. And then there was a financial impact. There were profit bleeds, rework. When we looked at the rework and schedule delays and things that got missed, scopes of work that were missed, they totaled up to about $300,000 a year. And then as we dug into it, the root cause became very apparent. And it became very apparent when Robert said, quote, I'm a firm believer of getting the work and figuring it out after the fact. That's when it hit me. The light bulb went off. Okay, this is the root cause of the problem. I'm a firm believer of getting the work and figuring it out after the fact. Remember when I got started, I said there's this really depressing company that studies contractors who fail. It's the FMI Corp. And they've been studying successful contractors who fail for over a decade. And they've studied hundreds of successful contractors who ended in financial crisis. And here's what they found. This is a screenshot from a pretty lengthy report. When they studied these companies that failed, 75% of those companies that failed, that ended in financial crisis, believed, quote, we'll figure out how to staff it once we get the job. So they interviewed all of these companies that failed. They found that 75% of them that failed believed this. This was their approach. We'll figure out how to staff the job once we get it. This is empirical data that this is a root cause of failure. But so many people try it. They think, why would I ever build my team before I get the work? This is why. Because maybe you'll be in the 25%, but statistically speaking, 75% of the companies that fail believe this. This is what they believe will work. So before you say yes to new work, before you fire up business development, before you fire up the marketing engine and try to sell more work, ask yourself some questions. Do we have the capacity to execute this work profitably? Do we have the structure to support it? Do we have the roles in place to deliver it? And you have a couple of options. You could go by gut feel, like a lot of people do, or you could take a more quantitative approach, use data. You could look at your accountability chart and ask questions like, how many projects can a project manager handle at one time? What does the schedule forecast look like for the next 6 months? When do we need to hire someone? It's pretty hard to hire top quality talent these days, and you're probably not going to be able to post a job and onboard somebody in 2 weeks. Think how, if it takes 2 or 3 months to get a superintendent or an estimator, that's how far in advance you need to hire. It's really tempting to say, let's get the work and we'll figure it out, but it's a trap. So avoid this pitfall. Companies that scale successfully have some bench strength. They have the systems and the team in place before they commit to taking on the work. Let me say that again. The companies that scale successfully understand that let's get the work and we'll figure it out. It's a trap. It's a pitfall. Those that scale successfully, they build some bench strength. They have the systems and team in place before it's too late. Now you're probably thinking, yep, you're right. We need to hire some superintendents, foremen. We got to get some guys in the field ramped up, which leads me to the third pitfall, which is this. It's believing that our biggest problems are in the field. This is what I hear a lot. Our biggest problems are in the field. We need more superintendents. We need them to take more ownership. We need them to be more productive. They need to be better at managing their time. We need better PMs. These guys need more training. We need better subcontractors, more subcontractors. Any of that sound familiar? Well, here's what I found. The truth is, after consulting with 800 or so construction business owners, after 30 years of managing projects myself, and after coaching 400 plus construction business owners, here's what I found. The number one problem, the number one root cause is what I call the JETS trap, the just enough to start. It's doing just enough to start. And here's what that looks like. It's when, if you're looking at a basic Gantt chart, it's when we do just enough pre-construction, just enough to start, and then say, we'll figure out the rest of that later. We don't need to know that right now. We kick off construction, and then we continue to do what should be pre-construction work during construction. And where we have overlap, there's chaos. This chaos looks like chasing down selections and decisions with clients, trying to get permits pushed through, driving architects and designers and engineers to complete their work while managing this tornado of changes that's caused by all of this stuff, finding suppliers, buying out the project, finding trade partners, negotiating pricing, managing long lead materials, managing the risk, maybe not, probably not, and trying to manage the budget, all while building the project. This is the just enough to start trap. And it's really painful, really a bad idea. It can be an extinction level event to try to scale a company when this chaos exists for 3 reasons. 1, this chaos has a financial impact. Profit bleeds like rework, schedule delays, giveaways, lost productivity, they rack up. And in that FMI study I mentioned, there's a quote that says, somebody asked, well, how much money can you lose on a project? And the consultant's answer was, all of it. You can lose all of it on one bad project. So there's a financial impact when this chaos exists. It also has an impact on your team, your stress level. They get fed up and say, these guys don't have their stuff together. I'm going to go work somewhere else. People leave. And for businesses that are heavily dependent on referrals and relationships, your reputation takes a hit. If you like negotiated repeat business, sometimes I've seen clients will say, and I was an owner's rep for a while and said, look, these guys don't have it together. We're gonna go with somebody else on this one. It's very difficult. It's ill-advised to try to scale a company if you're dealing with this chaos. That's the old way. This is the new way. If you want to scale your business, this is what you want it to look like. You want to have a well-defined, well-documented pre-construction phase that is separate from construction. And in between pre-construction and construction, you do what we call nail the handoff, so that there's a good handoff of information, accountability, communication from pre-construction to construction. And the construction team has everything they need to finish before they start. Here's another secret that I've found. Our customers have been very successful by separating accountability for pre-construction from the accountability for construction. This pre-construction phase falls in between sales and business development and construction. And one of the best things that we found is to create a pre-construction phase and a pre-construction role. So somebody is accountable for pre-construction. I interviewed this gentleman on the podcast a couple of years ago. His name is Wes Palmisano. He's grown, at the time, his business was $250 million a year. And he attributes a lot of their success to their intense focus on pre-construction. When I interviewed Wes on episode 309 of the podcast, here's what he said. He said he started spending 90% of his time on pre-construction. And his quote was, "I realized if I put the time and energy and effort into pre-construction, I'm able to set the job up for success and enable success for a team where their task is to execute the plan." Pre-construction sets up the team for success where their task is just to execute the plan. So personally, I've worked with large successful companies on projects ranging up to $70 million construction contracts. And these companies were doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. General contractors, site work, concrete, structural steel, electrical, paving, all across the board. And here's what I found. If you look really closely at these companies, if you pull back the curtain, I noticed they're not actually a great construction company. All right, these successful companies that are doing hundreds of millions in revenue successfully growing, they're not actually great at construction. They're actually a great pre-construction company. You just can't see the pre-construction phase. You see what's going on the job sites. You see the buildings going up, or you see the roads being built, or you see the finished product, and it looks like, wow, these guys are really good at construction. But the truth is they're actually great at pre-construction. And this is the secret, maybe the really successful companies don't want you to know about, your competitors probably don't want you to know about, is that the secret profit phase of every project is the pre-construction phase. That's where margins are made or lost, schedules are made or lost. It's in the pre-construction phase. So companies that scale successfully are actually great at pre-construction. Here's that second hidden metric that gives you some indication of how ready your company is for growth. It's the handoff completeness grade. Going back to grade school, AB, using a letter grade system, A through F. An A, handoff, is like a well-planned robbery, like Ocean's 11, 12, or for you ladies in the crowd, Ocean's 8. Well-planned robbery, every contingency is planned for, everybody knows exactly what to do. On the other end of the spectrum is a D or an F handoff, which is like a couple of Post-it notes and a prayer. I'm curious, if you were to look at your handoff completeness, what grade would you give it? A, B, C, D, or an F? What is your handoff completeness grade? So let's recap. Number one, hiring more people without systems could make it worse. Avoid that pitfall that says, we just need to hire more people. and we'll figure it out. Number two, the truth is more work without the right systems accelerates the problems. It's like throwing gas on a fire. Avoid that pitfall that says, we just need to get to work and we'll figure it out. That is a trap. It's a really shiny, beautiful trap, but it's a trap. And number three, the truth is the field is where pre-construction and handoff problems show up. It's like referred pain. The real problem is somewhere else. It shows up in the field. So if you want to be successful and you want to scale your business, you got to focus on pre-construction, that secret profit phase. So to scale sustainably, you need structure in place before you scale. So I want you to think about whatever your revenue target is. 10 million in revenue, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. Think about, you may want to write that down. If you're on here, you probably have some plans to scale revenue. Maybe it's headcount. Maybe you want to be in a certain number of markets. Whatever that growth goal is, you don't get to that level and then put the systems in place. You don't get to 20 million in revenue and then pause and say, okay, now we'll put $20 million systems in place. You get there by putting the systems in place first. The best way to become a $100 million company is to install $100 million systems before you get there. The best way to become a $10 million company is to install $10 million systems when you're at 5 million, okay? So structure before you scale. Become a great pre-construction company. This is the secret that your competitors don't want you to know about. Focus on nailing the handoff from the office to the field. And then get your three-legged stool in place. Get the systems and structures in place to support your people for growth. The accountability chart, the big five, remember the Moneyball approach, and create your playbook, your "this is how we do it" playbook. Now, if you'd like some data to determine if your business is ready to scale, here are two resources for you. The first one is an online assessment to help you answer the question, is your construction business ready to scale? You can scan this QR code, or you can go to this website, constructionleadingedge.com/ready. It'll take you to an online assessment. You can answer about 30 questions, and it will give you a customized report that looks like this. It will show you 4 major parts of your business and how you grade yourself, and ultimately how ready is your business to scale. And it'll give you some indication of what you need to focus on if you want to scale. So if you want to get that online assessment, it just takes a few minutes, answer 30 questions, and you'll get a customized report. Scan that QR code or go to that link, constructionleadingedge.com/ready. And if you want another set of eyes on your business, then I would invite you, if you're a construction business owner, to book a free business evaluation call with my team. We'll get on a call for about 30 to 40 minutes. We'll dig into your business. We'll pinpoint the #1 constraint that's holding you back. And we'll see if there's some hidden profit in your business. Some people want to scale their business to increase profit, but a lot of our clients have found they don't actually have to scale to be more profitable. They just need to keep more of what they're already bringing in. They need to keep more of the profit. There are profit bleeds that need to be fixed. So we'll see if there's some hidden profit in your business. Wouldn't that be great if you could make more money without selling more work or hiring more people? One of our clients was doing about 5 million in revenue. We figured out he had about $400,000 of hidden profit in his business. And then we'll lay out a plan to give you some clarity on what to do next to systemize your business and scale. So this is not a sales pitch. There's a pretty good chance we may not even talk about working together. We just want to provide clarity and a plan. If it does make sense to talk about working together, we'll get into some of those details. But if not, you'll still walk away with some valuable insights. So if you want to schedule that call with my team, you can scan that QR code or go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply. So those are the two resources. If you're thinking about scaling, I would encourage you to get some data. Go take that online assessment at constructionleadingedge.com/ready. And if you know you need some help, or you want an objective third-party opinion on what's going on with your business, then schedule a call with my team. It's not for everybody. There's some qualifications you need to meet, but you'll find that out when you go to that link. So with that, Brian, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. That is great information. I hope everybody here picked up some good tips to help their business. Kara, do we have a poll for our attendees before we open up Q&A? We do. For all of you here still online, if you could please give us a quick response to the poll, that would be appreciated. And Q&A is open. As I mentioned, the question icon at the top right-hand side of your screen is where you can find the questions pane. Please feel free to type your questions in and submit those, and we will get through them as best we can. We do have one question from Troy. He's asking if you guys have ever heard of EOS. Oh, you're muted, Todd. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, EOS, Gino Wickman Entrepreneurial Operating System. Yeah, it's a general business operating system that companies across all industries use. Yeah.
Cool. How does that differ from what you guys do there at Construction Leading Edge?
We only work with construction business owners. And I actually looked at becoming an EOS implementer several years ago, and frankly found that their system, their approach was, they'll tell you, okay, now you need to document your processes. You need to, they don't call it a playbook, but they would tell you, okay, now you need to do it. And it would be up to you to figure that out. They don't help with implementation. They have great tools, basic tools, but they don't really provide a lot of guidance on what should be in your playbook and how to design your business to avoid those problems. Yeah, that's what I've done. Great, a lot of great stuff in there. A lot of our clients use parts of EOS as well, and it's highly recommend reading the book Traction if you want to learn more about EOS. A lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. So more so, here's what you should be doing, not so much here's how you should be doing it.
Yeah, it's what to do, not, hey, if you really want to scale a construction business, you need to focus on pre-construction, and here are some aspects of your pre-construction process you should consider including. Yeah, but good information nonetheless.
Awesome. Any other questions? Not seeing any pop through. Oh, yeah, wow, that just happened quickly. When you partner with a business owner to develop their systems, what is an average length of time that you work with them?
One of the things that's a little different about the way we work compared to other coaching programs is we install specific systems in a specific amount of time. So 8 to 12 weeks is the average of how long we work with our clients. Yeah.
Good. Do you have any advice about applying field research techniques to begin examining what the big five would be for operators and foremen?
Field research techniques.
So do you have any advice about applying field research techniques to begin to examine what the big five would be for operators and foremen?
Yeah, the way where you start with your big five is the accountability chart. It starts with the results and outcomes that role is accountable for. So it's not about field research. It starts with the accountability chart and the design for your business. How do you want your business to run? What are the outcomes you want it to produce? And then drill down into what are the outcomes you want your operators and foremen to produce. So that's where to start. And then he would work backwards into, okay, what are the leading indicators, the activities that are leading indicators of success that will, like for example, if you want the foreman, if foremen are all about hitting labor budgets, for example, or productivity targets, you would ask, what are some things they can do every day or every week that will increase the likelihood of that outcome? And those are the big 5 activities. Yeah.
Got it. Someone did ask whether or not this was being recorded, and if so, how they get it. And it is being recorded, and anybody who registered will be receiving a link to the recording in an email today or tomorrow. William is asking, or just saying, 50% of his business is construction, but there's no question. Certainly good to know, 50% of your business is construction. Was there more? Mark's asking if you can share the accountability chart again. I'm thinking it is in the recording. Mark, maybe when you get that link, if you just fast forward, that would be probably the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
Let's go here. The other 50% of the construction business is a B2B business. Would your program be applicable to that?
Definitely applicable to the construction part, depending on what the, I'm not sure what the 50% that's B2B would be, what that means. The best bet would be go listen to our podcast, Construction Leading Edge podcast. It'll give you a sense of what we do. Or if you think there's a pretty good chance we can help with the construction part, you can schedule a business evaluation call. We'll take a look at your business and tell you quickly if it's not a fit.
Got it. Good. How would you go about prioritizing what should be tackled first? Speaking from a total site development, general contractor perspective, we cover a lot. Is prioritization based on what impacts bottom line the most, or what impacts people's time the most?
This is a fantastic question. Such a good question. Thank you for asking. If somebody called me and said, Todd, I need you to get on a plane. We're dealing with firefighting. We're losing money. Our people are about to quit. Our customers are unhappy. And they hung up. I would show up and we would work on the pre-construction process. We would design the pre-construction process. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. 80% of the problems in firefighting can be eliminated with a good handoff. So this is kind of weird because it's in the middle. Some people would think, well, we need to figure out the operations side, but if you want to get out of that firefighting loop, it starts with pre-construction. That's where we start, and that's where I start whenever I do a custom engagement with a client. Fly out to their office, we always look at pre-construction, and it's always the root cause of the problems. Yeah, great question.
So if I were to get the takeaway from that, I would think that dealing with the pre-construction side would impact more of what impacts people's time more than it would what's impacting the bottom line. But then again,
it's actually both. Yeah.
Pre-construction affects the bottom line as well.
It does. What people typically need is they need more time. They need to get out of firefighting mode. They need to free up a few hours a week so they can focus on high-level tasks. And nailing the handoff, a good pre-construction process does that. It also eliminates profit bleed. So it really does both. Yeah.
Nice. Another good question. You were talking about OIC. what is considered an ideal OIC in your opinion for a small business owner?
That depends. I would say, well, we help our clients design their business to run the way they want to, with the level of involvement they want. So we have a client who, his name is Max Christensen. He spends 16 weeks on the beach in Mexico a year. His OIC is pretty damn low. He likes to show me his phone and say, look, I got 2 phone calls yesterday when I was in the office and everything ran fine when I was gone. For others who want to be more involved, they really want to operate their business, it could be a little bit higher. The ideal, if you were to ask me what's the ideal, I would say it's 0. It's a business that runs without you. That's the ideal.
Yeah. Yep.
Good question.
Yeah. That's interesting because that kind of ties into a previous webinar that we did, right? About structuring your business for not necessarily exiting, but to free up your time so that you can do really what it is you wanted to do when you started the business in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people are really focused on how do I get into business? Like, how do I start a business? How do I make it a full-time gig? How do I make it work? But very few people think, all right, how am I going to get out of this business? How do I get it to run without me so that I can have a life, so I can take a 3-day weekend, so I can hand it off to my kids someday, so I can sell it at some point. Yeah. But it's a good question to think about, is how do I design my business to run without me? And worst case scenario, if something happens to you, what kind of mess is your family going to be left with if the business is designed to run around you?
Yeah, no kidding. All right, we are at just a little bit after the hour, and we have one last question, and then we will wrap it up here. What types of construction are you familiar with? General, private, public works?
All of the above. All of the above. Yeah, I ran a public a company that did municipal sewer lining and infrastructure work. I've done private work. I've done government work, residential, commercial. We help companies from all different aspects and from all over the US and Canada, and even some internationally. Yeah.
Great. Absolutely. Amazing. Great content, very educational. Still have quite a few people hanging out here, which is great. Good to see this level of engagement. Todd, very much appreciate you taking the time to present here for us today. For all of our attendees, thank you for taking the time to join us and listen in, and hopefully you had some good takeaways. Again, this is being recorded. The email will go out with the recording link. Todd's QR code and URL will be listed there if you do have interest in reaching out. And that is it. Until next time, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you again for the next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.